Hi guys, this is Ulrich with Guitar Ingenuity. Today with the fourth of my guitar question series. The question is how to give a guitar lesson. So there are obviously different types of guitar learning settings. There are one-on-one lessons, there are group lessons, there are online classes or online courses, and we're going to talk about all of those different settings in a little bit and what it means for you as a guitar teacher or as someone who prepares to give a lesson in any of these respective settings. But before we do that, I just want to share with you what I call the 4 core principles that I established for myself as a guitar teacher when I give guitar lessons. So I started a long time ago, like 25 years ago. Never full-time, so it was always a side gig for me teaching guitar, primarily beginners. But over the years, I certainly gained my fair share of experience and I made many mistakes. So I want to share with you what I believe are the 4 most important points as you prepare for a guitar lesson or as you prepare to put a guitar course together. So number 1, be prepared, be prepared, and be prepared. That's the most important principle that I established for myself. It is very tempting, especially after you established a relationship with your guitar student or guitar students, that you think, you know what, I'm just going to show up later today and well, I'll swing things on the fly, right? So let's see what they did over the past few weeks and I'll take it from there. And then I'm just going to tag on to that. That can go horribly wrong. Before you start a lesson, you should have a very clear understanding of what the objective is of that lesson. You may have to deviate a little bit from your plan to get to that objective, just depending on how well prepared your student comes to the lesson. But don't just show up there and think, oh, I'm just going to make things up on the fly. That's not good, that's not professional, and you know what? Your student will likely pick up on that. Also, it makes yourself feel bad because you know you could have done better. So number 2 and number 3, they're somewhat connected, but number 2, focus on the content. It is very easy to get sidetracked, especially after, you already gave a few lessons, you get to know the person, you get to know your students, they start talking, and all of a sudden, you lose focus on what the actual objective is, which means teaching guitar or for your student learning guitar. And, I'm not suggesting that you need to be a drill sergeant and just push the content through the lesson come hell or high water. You need to be adaptable, you need to be flexible. But you should not lose focus on what the actual content of the lesson is and what you actually want to achieve for your student at the end of that lesson. Number 3, maintain a professional relationship. I can tell you a few stories on that one, but all of a sudden, one student, she was a teenage girl, and all of a sudden I became the second father figure to her, and she shared all her problems with me. And if you are passionate about people, if you want to help people, if you have a genuine interest in people, it's very, very easy that you suddenly become more than just a guitar teacher. All of a sudden you're the therapist, you're the life advisor, you're the good friend, or whatsoever. But that's, in my opinion, very, very dangerous, because the truth of the matter is you have essentially a contract with your student. You got together with the objective that he or she learns guitar from you. And look, I'm not suggesting that you can't have any personal conversations or a conversation that is not relative to the objective of your lesson or guitar in general. But it is very important that you distance yourself, in my opinion, from any personal things that are going on in your student's life for the reasons that I just mentioned. Now, again, I'm the first one to admit that it happened to me, especially in the beginning, very, very often. So all of a sudden, back then I was smoking, so we're smoking cigarettes, and we were talking about this, we were talking about that. But the fact of the matter is you get nothing accomplished. Your student gives you the cash at the end of the lesson, but nothing was really done. And I don't know, it made me feel bad. It never made me feel good. So And after I realized that for myself, I changed my tact going forward. Now, I'm not suggesting it's completely impossible not to become friendly with a guitar student. I mean, I have another example of a guy whom I became friends with, but we were able to really, that once a week, that guitar lesson that we had scheduled, this is where we did work. And then afterwards, the eating and drinking afterwards, that happened after the lesson. That's okay. So we clearly separated these things. If you can do that, then that's fine. But again, in general, the third principle, try to always maintain a professional relationship with your guitar students. The fourth one is to make sure that in each lesson that you give, that you incorporate at least one little win. What I mean by that, nothing is more motivating and encouraging than the sense of accomplishment. So if you give a lesson, make sure that there is something your student can learn quickly and they take away from the lesson and feel good about it. That can be challenging. If you teach a guitar beginner the F chord, they struggle with that. So you need to think about ways to incorporate little wins to make this thing a little bit easier, because for weeks they've been trying to master that chord and they can't get anywhere. So you got to be a little bit creative. What can you do? Are there workarounds? Are there other ways to learn this F chord? But make sure that you at least incorporate one little win where they go home, and as they resume their practice, they get that sense of achievement, and they feel that they achieved and accomplished something, and that makes them feel good. So now there are obviously different lesson settings. So the most effective one, I think we talked about that in the previous lesson, is really face-to-face lessons. There's no doubt about that. Even though I don't do that anymore, I do all my teaching online. The face-to-face lesson 101 is the most effective way to teach and learn guitar. There's no doubt in my mind about that. There are advantages and disadvantages with that approach, as with any other teaching method. But with the individual lesson, at least as a teacher, and as you prepare for a lesson and think about how to give a guitar lesson, you have much more flexibility. So again, while I suggest that you are prepared and have a clear understanding of what you want to do in this lesson, and ideally the next and the following lesson, you are much more adaptable and flexible, because students learn at a different pace and they have different preferences. And you can cater to that personal preference. So while you should have a baseline and a clear understanding of what the objective is, you can certainly, how you deliver that content, there you have a lot of flexibility, and you can adapt that to the personal preference of your student. Now, the group setting is very difficult. So if you have 2 students, 3 or more, that's very, very difficult. The reason why I don't like these settings as a guitar teacher is I want to help people. I want to help everybody. So I feel horrible if I see one person struggling. So inevitably, I spend a lot of my time and effort helping that person, and thereby I'm neglecting the rest of the students, which is not okay to them. So if you teach a group of people, then you just don't have this flexibility. Then you need to really come in with a program, and you need to stick to that program. Everybody needs to be clear on what needs to be done in lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. And that's the objective, and that's what you push forward. And again, it's difficult because inevitably you see people struggling, you want to help them. But don't get caught in spending a lot of time with those people, trying to help them, trying to do the right thing, because you're neglecting all the others. All right, I hope that was somewhat helpful. Again, just the 4 principles that I talked about that work for me. Yours might be different, but hopefully it gives you something to think about. So be prepared, be prepared, be prepared. Never go into a lesson without having a clear understanding of what you want to achieve with your student. That sometimes only takes 5 minutes to prepare for a lesson, because very likely, especially after a while, after you've been teaching for a while, you obviously reuse the same materials that you put together over and over. But just before you meet with the student, have a clear understanding of what you want to get out of this lesson for yourself and for your student. focus on the content. Don't get sidetracked. Don't have the TV running in the background or listening to music, smoking cigarettes and all that nonsense. Focus on the content. You're here to give a lesson. Third, maintain a professional relationship. Again, nothing wrong with being friendly or establishing a relationship outside guitar teaching thing that you have going on with your student. But if you do that, keep it separate, but just always keep in mind you've been hired to provide a service. And it's essentially nothing else but a contract you have between you and your students. And the fourth one, make sure that there are little wins in each lesson. At least one thing where they say, yeah, that works out, you know, where they go home and show their parents or their spouses, hey, look what I learned today. It's very motivating, and it helps them keeping up that drive and their willingness and their commitment to practice. So again, as usual, if you have any questions, ideas, criticism, I invite you to leave your comments below the video. I also invite you to leave a like if this video was helpful to you. And if you're not a subscriber yet, there is a button up somewhere here. I would love for you to become a subscriber of Guitar Ingenuity. And lastly, also somewhere around here, you should find the link to my website where you find an article that I wrote about this specific topic, just in case you want to read up on a couple of things or want to print it out or so. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Till then, bye-bye.